Shut up! Don't get in my way by pretending to be sick. You're a useless housewife. I was feeling very sick, but my husband ran out of the house, shoving me aside. I suppose the husband and the wife were to support each other in sickness and in health. He left me behind. The word despair whirled around in my head as I slowly lost consciousness. Then, someone unexpectedly came to my rescue. I'm Wendy, 32 years old. I married my husband Sam, of the same age about a year ago. I was leading a normal life as a working wife. We met at work, and he agreed with me to continue working after marriage. We shared the chores at home, but he was not very good at them. I gave him only simple things to do in the end. He didn't show any reluctance and was very proactive, so I had no complaints about my marriage. At one point, I had been feeling mildly ill and went to see a doctor. Congratulations, you have just entered the 7th week. To my surprise, I found out that I was pregnant. That day, Sam and I shared our joy together. I'm going to be a dad. It doesn't feel real. That's how it is in the beginning. It will grow little by little. We were filled with excitement. I was full of hope for a happy future, but despite my expectation, reality took a different turn. Hey, where's my dinner? It's your turn to cook today. And you didn't even clean the bathtub. I'm sorry, I'm not feeling well, so I couldn't do anything today. I was in a state of intense morning sickness in the first trimester of my pregnancy, and I was barely able to breathe. I felt nauseated all day and could barely stand. I spent most of my days at home sleeping. I couldn't even go to work and kept taking sick days. Sam didn't even try to understand my suffering and didn't give me slack. No work and no chores. He thought I was just being lazy. He blatantly showed his dissatisfaction and became grumpier with me. Don't rely on me just because you're pregnant. You want me to do all the housework and go to work? How can you be a mother if you're already like that? There were times when I thought to myself how he could treat me like that. At the same time, I understood that a wife who couldn't support him properly after he came home from stressful work was nothing but an annoyance to him. I thought about going back to my parents' house until my condition settled, but I was afraid to create an intractable distance between us. I hoped that my morning sickness was temporary and that it would stop in another 2 months. Until then, I just needed to make it work. That was what I told myself, but his disdainful behavior accelerated. The morning sickness somehow subsided after a little while, but the illness persisted for a long time. I was in and out of the hospital repeatedly, and I decided to take a leave of absence from work for a while. If I pushed myself too hard and something happened to my baby, I couldn't forgive myself. I discussed it with my doctor at my work, and we made a decision. Sam wasn't so understanding though. Don't depend on me so much. It's your fault if you don't or can't work. Well, that may have been true. My decisions were made to protect the baby in my belly. Why did he need to blame me? I put up his unreasonable attitude. It's about the living expenses. I only get a small allowance during my leave. Can you contribute a little more from your salary? I pleaded with him. What the hell? Why do I have to pay for your portion as well? He wasn't helpful. I questioned myself if I should keep being married to him. My anxiety grew bigger and bigger like a balloon. I thought everything was going to turn out well when I got pregnant. How did it go wrong? The final straw was my mother-in-law, Anne. How are you doing, Wendy? One day I received a call from her. She had divorced her husband when Sam was in the middle school and raised him single-handedly. She was very sharp, but gentle and treated me well. You should move around a little while you're pregnant. It must be hard for my son to do the housework while working. You need to take charge of that. I felt despair being told by her. She was not a bad person for sure. She had given birth herself, and I could understand her point of view. At that time, I felt like she was telling me not to slack and do all the housework. Especially if you're taking time off work. Yes, you're right. I was planning to discuss Sam with her, but I felt completely isolated after that. She didn't seem to take into account my feelings. Let me know when you need any help. She hung up the phone after saying that, but I was still bothered by the situation. Then, a disaster fell upon me. I had been feverish and lethargic all morning. On top of that, nausea came and went intermittently. I managed to prepare Sam's breakfast in the weak state and then laid on the sofa. You don't need to show off that you're sick, he grumbled and looked at me with disdain. I laid in bed after he left for work, but my condition didn't get any better. I was unlikely to be able to cook dinner for him. I contemplated ordering in, but then I remembered that our money was tight. The living expenses Sam gave me were far from enough, and I had to take out from our savings every month. In addition, my medical expenses for the upcoming birth weren't cheap. At that rate, we would have been broke before our baby was born. I called Sam nervously. I'm really sick today. I'm sorry, but I can't make dinner. Can you pick up something on the way back? What the hell are you talking about? You're a housewife. Yeah, but if I can't move, what am I supposed to do? I'm too busy. You go and get something. Don't make me do your job. After he hung up on me, I quietly wept. Later that evening, I heard the front door closing violently. Sam had returned home. Hey, honey, dinner is... Doesn't matter. I'm going out for a drink. At that time, my whole body was burning and I could barely stand up. I'm feeling quite sick. I need you to stay with me tonight. I begged and pleaded. He quickly shoved me aside and yelled, Shut up! Don't get in my way! You're just a useless housewife who pretends to be sick all the time. He then walked out of the house. I had no strength to go back to bed and collapsed in the doorway. Somebody, help me! I screamed desperately in my mind, but there was no one to answer me in the house all alone. Then I heard someone's voice from afar. In my fading consciousness, a familiar voice spoke to me. Stay with me! Who is this? I lost consciousness there. When I awoke, I found Anne staring at me anxiously. I was lying on the bed in the hospital. Wendy! Oh, thank God, you're awake! She happened to come over and called an ambulance when she found me collapsed at the doorway. You're safe now. Your baby is fine. I'll go get a doctor. Wiping her tears, she quickly left the room. According to the doctor, I was extremely anemic and had seasonal flu. If Anne didn't find me, the baby would have been in danger. I was feeling feverish all day, but I was surprised to learn that it was 104 degrees when I was taken to the hospital. But, Anne, why were you there? Sam told me that you were being lazy, and he wanted me to come and discipline you. He had been complaining, so she finally came to assess the situation and found me unconscious. I'm sorry. didn't even listen to what you had to say, but gave you a lecture. There was another reason for her visit. I also wanted to thank you for this. That red cardigan looks great on you. Her birthday was last week. I had always sent her gifts on her birthday and for Mother's Day every year since I got married. I'm getting old. The cold weather feels harsher on me. I remembered she had mentioned it to me, so I sent her a cardigan. The color was a little bit bright to aid a youthful look, but the design was simple. Thank you for remembering everything I said. You've always been attentive and cared about others. I was concerned if you really did nothing at home, as Sam said. And then this happened. I'm so sorry. Her tears flowed as she held my hand tightly. No, it's okay. I was going to talk to you about him, but it just got a little awkward. I cried in front of her too. Knowing that she was on my side made me feel lighter. After we cried together for a while, she said to me with fury, "He is my son, but what he did is unforgivable. How dare he treat the mother of his child in his terrible way?" Her mouth trembled with anger, and she squeezed her handkerchief tightly. "So, what are you going to do about him?" I told her about my plan, and she nodded her head in agreement. "I'm on your side. I'll always have your back." I made up my mind to act upon it after being assured by her. After a week in the hospital, Anne accompanied me back home. I didn't hear from Sam once during my stay there. That no longer mattered anyway. When we arrived home, there was a terrible stench in the air, even though it had only been for 7 days. I felt like my nose was going to fall out. "What's that smell? It smells like a wild beast lives here." Anne almost made me laugh, but I had it back. The smell was out of this world. Sam was lying on the sofa in the living room, drooling and snoring. "Wake up, you idiot!" He was instantly awakened from his dream by Anne's scream. He jumped off of the sofa with a pitiful yes. "Oh, what, Mom? Wendy? You've been away from home for days. What have you been doing?" He immediately complained to me, but Anne put him in place. "Wendy was in the hospital. What's with this mess? A zoo is better than this." She was right. In just 1 week, the house had turned into a garbage dump. There was a collection of empty beer cans and food scraps in the sink. Damp hand towels and underwear were strewn about. And the floor was sticky as if some liquid had been spilled all over it. "It's worse than a zoo. I wonder how you were living here," I muttered to myself, and he glared at me. "Don't talk so high and mighty. You're the one who—" "I doubt that even a baby would make such a mess. I had no idea you were incapable of taking care of yourself." I calmly stated my mind. It was actually true. When I thought about it, I realized that I did a fair amount of cleaning and laundry. When I was at home, at least it wasn't as messy as a cage in a zoo. I had never imagined that he was a chimpanzee with no life skills. "Why did you leave Wendy behind that night?" He was completely overwhelmed by her pressure. Men, no matter how old they were, always seemed vulnerable to their mothers. "She just sulked like a little kid and told me not to go out for drinking." "You're saying that she faked her illness, even though she was so pale with the high fever? Do you have a brain?" She was a relative calm person, and that was the only time I heard her scold him harshly. He remained silent, glaring at me. How dare you rat me out? I could almost hear his mind. Then he uttered in a low, growling voice, "Don't get carried away. I've provided for you all this time." If it had been me in the past, I would have shrunk at his anger. I was not such a timid woman anymore, you know. Well, okay then. You don't have to support me anymore. I'm ready for that now. What do you mean? I mean, I don't need you anymore. Who in the world would want to be married to a big baby who can't do anything on his own? I was fed up with him. If it was just his outburst at me, I might have endured. Wait, no, I wouldn't have. I thought we could have worked it out through talks and therapies. He went out drinking while I was seriously ill. He trashed the house, unable to live as a normal adult while I was in the hospital. He scored less than 0 as a husband or a father. By the way, you said it was a drink with your friends, but I wondered what you were really doing. I gave him a death stare as I muttered. He flinched to my amusement. That's none of your business. Yes, it is her business. She has the right to know since she is your wife. Now, tell us the truth. Sam was trembling at Anne's harshness. Well, he fumbled for words. If you don't want to tell us, it's all right. You're already busted. I'll show you proof that you can neither run nor hide from. You can't possibly. At that moment, his face turned pale. Yes, you'd better come clean right away. You're not very good at this, are you? He held his head down and gave in to our insistent pursuit. I'm sorry. He raised a white flag. To recap, he had been having an affair with a co-worker since I became pregnant. It was a very common story. What's her name? Which department does she work in? How often were you seeing her? We interrogated him with a smirk on our faces. I stopped the recording on my phone. Well done. We have a confession tape. Thank you so much for coming out clean. When I cheerfully thanked him, his expression turned back to a grimace. You tricked me, he exclaimed. Yeah, so what? I can't believe you were cheating on me. You just saved me the trouble of hiring an investigator. Thanks. You fooled me. He was frustrated and blamed me for the affair. I couldn't understand his logic at all. You were trying to grab my attention, so you played being sick. We are the same. Not at all. When I saw him stubbornly refusing to admit his own fault, I began to feel more miserable. Anne sighed deeply and mumbled, You're selfish, arrogant, and a liar, just like your father. No, not my dad. He was shocked by the unexpected remark. It was understandable. His parents divorced when he was in middle school, and he hated his father. According to what I had been taught, his father had a mean streak and often got drunk and became violent. He never thought to be told that he was just like the man he despised. I don't drink and act out. That wasn't the point she was trying to make. I can tell you how many times your father let me sick when I was pregnant and went out drinking. I guess sons become like their fathers after all. If I knew I should have divorced him before you could even remember, she said in disgust and a little sadness. He remained still, unable to move from the shock. I would rather not have a father who is a bad influence on the child. Don't you agree, Wendy? Right, we don't need him. Or rather, he should be eliminated. After hearing the most convincing reason for the divorce, he was at a loss for words. Why don't you reconsider? We're going to have a baby. Let's calm down, okay? He still had the strength to beg and came close to me in a coaxing voice, like a small child begging his mother. "What are you talking about? We're long past that stage." "What am I supposed to do then?" He covered his face with his hands in distraught. I could see his eyes peeking through between his fingers and checking my reaction. He still seemed to anticipate a better outcome. Then Anne delivered the final blow on him. "Enough! If you persist any longer, I will disown you. What do you say now, huh?" "What the hell, Mom? Why won't you stand by me?" He finally seemed to give up at a point. Some said a woman's enemy was a woman, but in the end, a woman's friend was also a woman. She stood by me to the end. I filed for divorce in the 7th month of my pregnancy. I had never imagined that having a child was going to destroy our marriage. Maybe the child had given me a blessing in disguise. After that, I returned to my parents' house and gave birth to a healthy baby boy. I hadn't informed my parents about my trouble, so when I returned with a big belly, they were taken aback. My father introduced me to a lawyer who helped me negotiate the divorce. I was able to get alimony that took into account the amount of emotional and financial pain and suffering. I also met the adulteress and gave her a month full till I was satisfied. After the divorce was finalized, Sam visited me several times, asking to meet his son. I still haven't received my child support payment. When I got sarcastic with him, he responded with an incoherent argument. "You don't need that. We are a family, and the best thing for us is to be together." He made no sense at all. You scored below 0 as a husband. At least fulfill your duty as a father to your child. If you don't, you are good for nothing like your father. He laughed in desperation, as if he had been hit over the head with a sledgehammer. He must have a loathsome image of his father in his memory. Rumor had it that he had resigned from his job. He complained to his colleagues about our divorce that it wasn't his fault, and it backfired. He seriously believed that he did nothing wrong. He told them exactly what he said and did to me, which disgusted everyone. At the same time, rumors of his affair with a colleague spread. No one felt sorry for him. He was seen as a scumbag in the company. He became isolated, and it was too uncomfortable for him to keep working there. He was a typical delusional man. I was afraid that he might have kept the illusion of us getting back together. Of course, I had no intention of doing so. "Oh, Andy, I heard you are going back to work soon. Are you feeling better?" "Yes, I'm much better now. I have to work for him." "That's right. You're a strong mother." I don't tell Sam about it, but I sometimes take my son to see Anne. "I'm not your family now that you're divorced. Don't worry about visiting me." She used to feel bad for me. "You saved not only mine, but his life too." Now she holds her grandson happily in her arms. As you are an experienced single mother, please give me guidance. "Of course, from now on, we're going to be sisters in arms, or fellow detectives who have driven the villain to confession. We have become more like best friends now. Well, this kind of relationship isn't so bad. Sometimes I feel uneasy though. You're just like your father." Her words stay with me. I wonder if one day my son will become just like Sam. Will there be a time when I think like father, like son? There's no point in worrying about the future. I will teach him right from wrong. I will tell him the importance of kindness and compassion. My son will be my son, no matter what. Nothing more, nothing less. As a mother, I will risk my life to raise him. The sunlight softly shines through the cold winter sky. I feel like it's cheering me on.
Pregnant at 42?
That's disgusting. You are already old. What are you trying to beat at this stage? It's seriously impossible to carry out a pregnancy. We've been married for over 20 years. I've always wanted a child and worked so hard to have one. The long-awaited moment finally arrived, but my husband's profanity was so terrible. He looked at me with contempt as if I were a piece of trash. I felt anger that overridden my deep sorrow. I was determined to make my life with my beloved child and ran out of the house. In addition to giving birth at my age, I was going to be a single mother. It was not an easy road. Still, if I never had to see his face again, I gritted my teeth to protect my child. It was during those days that the worst reunion happened. I never imagined that it would lead to such an ending though. My name is Lisa. I got married at the age of 20 to Ivan, whom I have been dating since high school. We enjoyed our newlywed life a little earlier than others around us. Although we were not well off, we were fulfilled with our daily life except there was one thing. It was infertility. We got married before anyone else, but we couldn't get pregnant. In 5 years, our friends got married and had babies, but we were not as fortunate as them. Why can't we have a baby? I think you have a problem. Whenever people around us brought the news of pregnancy, Ivan got grumpy and insulted me. He made himself out of the victim and put all the blame on me. Why don't we go through infertility treatment together? If we can't get pregnant after all this time, we have no choice but to get proper help. Why do I have to go? A woman gives birth, so the cost must be the woman. Besides, how much do you think the treatment costs? It was true that infertility treatment did not guarantee pregnancy and was not cheap either. It also took a lot of time, so I could understand why he didn't want to go through with it. His words made me sad, but I was more pained by the coldness of the way he looked at me. Most women get pregnant naturally, but you are seriously incompetent. I feel like I've been cheated. I shouldn't have married you. He ended the conversation then and started watching TV with a beer in his hand. He had no idea that I cried alone every time. This exchange went on for years. I eventually stopped talking about infertility treatment. We were still sexually active, but it became an unfulfilled and meaningless act for me. Deep in my heart, I always kept the hope to have a child. More than 10 years passed before my wish came true. One day, when I turned 42, the hope I had almost given up on sprouted. No way! I'm pregnant! I thought I was dreaming. As I checked the pregnancy test, ready to be disappointed as always, I could not believe I was seeing before my eyes. Forgetting to wipe away the tears, I immediately ran up to Ivan. Honey, I'm finally pregnant! We're having our baby! He was watching TV and looked at me in surprise. Then he let out a prolonged sigh. It's too gross! An old lady getting pregnant? It's nothing but a nuisance now. What are you saying? I could not understand what he meant. When I was done, he continued talking one-sidedly. Don't have a baby. It's going to only cost us money. Abortion isn't free either. Are you mad? How could you say such a thing? I have no feelings for you anymore. Just when I'm thinking of a divorce, you come up with trouble. Living with you is nothing but a pain in the neck for me. On top of that, I don't want to have to raise a child. With a distorted smile on his face, he shooed me the weight with his hand. I'd been told a lot of horrible things by him, but I couldn't endure anymore. At that moment, I finally decided that I would rather live as the mother of a child than as the wife of a man like him. If that's the case, I would divorce you. I would take responsibility for raising this child. I can't be with a lousy person like you.
That's convenient. Good luck raising this child alone, old lady. Don't come begging me for help.
He made it clear that he would not recognize the child. If I had taken the advice of my attorney to fight for child support, I could have gotten it from him. I was just so angry and disgusted that I only wanted to divorce him as fast as possible. I ended up getting nothing after all. Such things were trivial to me at that point. After our separation, I immediately returned to my parents' home, and with their support, I was able to give birth. My long-awaited son was adorable, and I thought I could do anything for him. When my body recovered, I decided to look for a job right away to make ends meet. My parents were to take care of my son so that I could work without worry. After visiting several places, I was hired by the diner. The manager and his wife were very kind people. As well as providing me with meals, they also gave me leftover food every day. I was more than grateful for their helpness.
We would like to support you in any way we can. You can bring your baby here sometimes.
Thanks to the considerate manager and his wife, I had no trouble making a living. It was around the time I was getting used to my job. I went to greet customers as usual and was stunned to see one of their faces. Oh my God, what are you doing here? It was Ivan sitting in the booth. Just looking at his face was enough to make me anxious. It was made worse by the young woman next to him, who looked at me puzzled.
None of your business. I mean, do you work here?
He laughed and tried to make fun of me.
You must be miserable, working in a rundown diner, looking like a bitter old woman. Unlike you, I'm leading a very colorful life.
He began to talk about himself without being asked for it. The woman he had with him was the daughter of a very respectable family with all money. After marrying her, he quit his job and was training to take over her family business. He did look a little well off, wearing a nice watch and all. I cut the conversation short and had a minimum exchange with him. Despite that, I could hear him talking bad about me and bragging about himself loudly until he left the diner. The woman next to him, looking embarrassed, must have been having a hard time with him. I felt a little sorry for her. As I was cleaning the table, the manager came up to me.
Was there someone you know? He seemed like a very vulgar person, unlike you.
He's my ex-husband. I'm very ashamed of him.
Really? He came here several times in the past several years. I remember him well because of his behavior.
My mind went blank. A few years ago meant that he had been cheating on me for a long time. He didn't initiate divorce until I became pregnant because he wasn't sure if he was fertile. If the woman was from a respectable family, the issue of heirs was an important matter. A man who couldn't have children was out of the question. When I got pregnant, he was convinced and was able to divorce me without a worry. The fact that I had been cheated on for so many years infuriated me. I was unaware of the affair at the time of our divorce and didn't file for alimony. The manager's memory alone wasn't enough evidence. It was too late to gather proof, and there was nothing I could do to get back at him anyway. Is there anything I can do now? As I was trying to wrap my head around it, the manager gave me the contact of someone.
If you want to do something about it, you should speak to her. She will help you.
A lawyer? Or a detective?
No, someone who might be the stronger ally.
At first, I didn't understand what he was saying. I had no way of knowing at the time that she would unexpectedly make a big difference in my life. Then, about a year after Ivan visited the diner, I suddenly received a call from him. He wanted to talk to me urgently. I decided to meet him at a nearby coffee shop. As soon as he arrived, he let out a deep sigh.
I've been married to Mary for a year now, and it's really been hell.
Mary was the woman he was with. He complained about her family and lifestyle, which he originally bragged to me about.
She's the same as you. She can't get pregnant. I'm really unlucky with finding a decent woman. I'm in such a hurry to have an heir, and this is really annoying. My in-laws are even saying that I'm the cause of the infertility. That's bullshit.
I listened to his complaint silently, sipping my coffee without even nodding to him.
I envy you for being able to make a living with such a simple job. I'm told that they don't need an old man who can't even produce an heir, and they won't even let me work. It's just too much. I went out of my way to quit my job and moved in with them in the countryside. They're ungrateful people.
Do you have to tell me that? I don't have time for this. As I finished my coffee, he took my hand and squeezed it tightly.
I'm not going to go through all this trouble to live in that filthy countryside. Why don't we start over? You're poor and in trouble, aren't you? I will help you.
Not a single word of apology from him. To top it off, he talked nonsense as he saw fit. My anger reached its peak. I shook his hand off as I screamed at him, not caring about other customers around.
Don't you dare! You threw me and our child away like trash.
And now what? I even know that you were having an affair with Mary while we were still together. Why would I want to go back to a man like you? My shout attracted the customer's attention. He was furious to be shamed in public. He overruled it with an even louder voice.
You're making false accusations. You cast suspicions without proof. I'm suing you for defamation.
I flinched a little at his sheer intensity, but at the same time I laughed. My joy at the certainty of victory outweighed my fear. I will give her all the proofs she needs. At the best possible moment, the woman sitting in the next booth stood up. When he saw her face, he was so surprised that he squeaked.
Mary, why are you here?
Lisa told me you were meeting her here. She sat down next to me and faced him. I have a years-long record of our correspondence. That should be enough proof of our affair, right?
Wait, how do you guys know each other?
That's because of the manager of the diner, right, Lisa? I nodded in agreement. The contact he gave me that day was Mary's. She had been a frequent customer of the diner for a long time and was a good friend of his. When he saw her looking unhappy next to Ivan, he thought that she might be going through the same as I did. After much consideration, I contacted her and we hit it off about Ivan. We became friends who shared the same problem. She apologized to me repeatedly for the affair. She had even offered me compensation for it. Instead, I asked her for help getting revenge on Ivan. I've been listening to you talk for a while, but you are such a liar. You're not being let to work because you had an affair with the housekeeper. Besides, your personality has changed too much since we got married. It's nothing but a shame now.
You lied me to the housekeeper because you don't get pregnant. It's not my fault.
When we took a fertility test, it was you who got a bad result. It was your fault. I wasn't going to blame you for that, But if you're going to use it as an excuse, it's a different story. Trying to escape from Mary, who went on scolding him, he looked at me with pleading eyes. Mary prevented that by banging on the table. Are you bailing out again? Your life is so miserable. Quit and run again and again. I heard you call Lisa incompetent a long time ago, but you are an example of incompetence. Stop being a selfish idiot and pay Lisa the alimony now.
Shut up! Divorce was finalized and there's nothing she can do about it. Why would I pay her now?
Then she can sue you for emotional distress. She had gone through a difficult pregnancy thanks to you abandoning her.
No way!
As he plopped down on the table, Mary shoved divorce papers in front of him. I asked you to divorce me too. Of course, I will charge you alimony for the affair.
Wait a minute.
He finally started to cry and repeatedly hit his forehead on the table.
What am I going to do now that I've divorced again? Have no job and no house? I can't pay alimony on top of it all. I would never cheat on you again. So please, forgive me.
How can I trust a man who has already committed adultery twice? You can pay alimony by borrowing money or in whatever way you can. That's how much pain you've caused me. He knew that Mary was so determined and could not be persuaded. He turned his tear-stained face to me next.
I'm really sorry. I'll become the kind of man you want me to be. Please, forgive me.
I thought about it for a moment before answering with a smile. Then, pay child support and become the man who will never appear in front of me again. Oh no, don't you have compassion? Since you can say it to me and mean it, I guess you don't have compassion. I'll tell everyone in this coffee shop what abuse you have said to me. I wonder how many people would be on your side. He finally gave up and reluctantly signed the divorce papers. In the end, I succeeded in getting back at him with Mary's cooperation. After he lost a place to live, he found a run-down apartment while working a few part-time jobs. He's doing unfamiliar work without a day off at this age and will continue to live like this until he pays off alimony to Mary. In addition, I'm currently in the process of getting his recognition of my son. A DNA test has already been done, so it should be just a matter of time. He will be responsible for paying child support soon. I can finally take a break now that everything is settled. I still keep in touch with Mary and sometimes meet her at the diner. We enjoy our current lives, laughing and talking about how we are going to find a good partner next time.